Hello and welcome to Future School. Last week I talked about, well, last week being 4 days ago due to technical issues, I talked about digital omnivore versus digital carnivore. Now if you don't know any of those words, digital being the internet, carnivore being the active consumer in this case, and the omnivore being a passive consumer, I want to take the 5-minute challenge on this and the importance of dealing with these types of situations in an integrated world. So, getting the 5-minute challenge set up, and begin. Begin. No edits. Digital carnivore. When we used to think of nerd, we thought of the guy who read comic books, who played video games, this being like the traditional 80s sense of nerd. Played comic books, read comic books, played video games, and really it was this intellectual who wasn't really a very social person. However, with the internet being both intellectual and social, in the terms of there's a lot of information on the internet, and there's also a lot of social interactive mediums on the internet, when we look at the digital carnivore, we see someone who seeks out both sides. We see someone seeking new information, seeking new technology, and seeking different social ways of understanding. Traditionally, you'll see these people maybe talk about how they're on Facebook for all their friends. Maybe they're on MySpace, Friendster. I'm trying to MSN Messenger, way back. And you'll see people who understand the in and outs of internet. Traditionally, if you don't know a meme, they're the person you go ask about. The digital carnivore is typically the younger generation who was born into the internet and who's upper middle class, someone who can afford a computer that runs fast and is really active. Now the digital omnivore is the kind of opposite. The digital omnivore, while on the internet and while consuming media, doesn't realize it. This is typically your aunt who's on Facebook after your grandma did. Or your grandma who's on Facebook because everyone in the family told her to be. This is the person who has a smartphone but doesn't really fully utilize it, and who gets their 3-year-old son to unlock it. The digital omnivore is essentially a passive consumer, but consuming the media of the internet, essentially. Now, when we think about these in an educational setting, what we're really looking at is a student versus a high schooler. Now, that sounds very volatile, and I apologize, but think of the slacker and the traditional scholar. Now, when we think about these two subjects of people, what we're really looking at is what's going on. Why is the digital carnivore going out there and trying to find everything? Why are they trying to figure out how to code? What is the ambition they have, and what do they want to do? While the omnivore probably sees the internet as still technological and not necessarily a social interactive medium. Now, where this really comes into play is how we move forward. Future School wants to not only combine internet and the education system, but what we're looking for is pathways to do that essentially without spending a lot of money. And when you're designing lesson plans, you have to keep in mind these two different kinds of people. You have to think of not only the person who knows the in and out of internet, but the person who doesn't really care. We see these people as in the more traditional setting. Typically your jocks, the people who see a computer and they ask their friends to turn it on. Where this really comes into play, though, is what's going on. Where this really comes into play, though, is Play-Doh. Hey ho, hey ho. Where this really comes into play, though, is there's a red bar. What's going on with that? What are you trying to tell me? Is it I'm too far? Where this really comes into play, though, is when you interact with the internet, what do you do? What do you want to do? And what do you hope you see yourself achieving from the internet? For instance, are you on the internet for purely the social medium? Are you on the internet purely for Facebook, Reddit, whatever? Or are you on the internet actively participating in it? In order to get a full understanding of how to use the internet for an educational system, what we really have to do is participate in the internet. It's a lot like teaching gym and not participating in any sports. Sure, there's exercises you can do, but really, you want to participate in sports in order to get fully involved. The internet's the same way. While we can sit here and talk about the internet at all points in time, what we really need to do is then put our work out there. Now, YouTube uploads, I think it's 24 hours of video every, I want to say it's like 3 hours. That's a lot of filter. That's a lot of stuff to get through. That's a lot of stuff that no one's really seeing. But we still have to participate in it. There's still that chance that it's going to be seen. There's still that chance it's going to be helpful. And most importantly, it's for our own good. The feedback we get, while volatile or whatever, is still going to be important. This has been Future School. Hopefully I'll be back next Monday if everything goes on correctly. The future, yeah. See you next week.